So yeah. So here we are in 2024. Switch is over 7 years old at this point. And it's a little long in the tooth, but it's had an absolutely wonderful run. One of the best. Couldn't ask for a better run for Nintendo. But as the future looms ahead of us, there is something where I think people might be just sort of assuming here that the next system is poised to dominate, because everyone thinks that because one thing does well now, the next thing will be do even better and do better and do better, and like it's a continuous upward slope, and that's not the way the world works. But it's funny how often people forget that. Anyways, so Nintendo has stated there is a Switch successor. They have publicly acknowledged it twice now as of the time of this recording. They have publicly acknowledged there is a Switch successor, but they have also said we are not going to talk about it. They say they will talk about it later, sometime this year, or maybe, but they're not talking about it yet. And the sort of like theory is that okay, it's Nintendo's best selling system ever. If the next one's gotta be even better. It's gonna do even better than that. And I'm here to tell you, and I'm here to tell the investors, and I'm here to tell the world that the next Nintendo system will not sell as well as the OG Switch did. This is not a sort of, I'm doom and gloom at all. In fact, put down the pitchforks, guys. Put down the pitchforks, because it's not a bad thing. And that doesn't mean the successor can be successful. The successor can be very successful, but it will not hit the Switch numbers. And I have 3 really good reasons why I think that is. So let's just go over why the Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever they end up calling it, will not sell as well as the Nintendo Switch original. All right, so I chopped this up from Nintendo's own website, and I've made a handy-dandy look-see here. So first, I will guide your attention directly above me to the Nintendo DS, Nintendo's current reigning champion for best-selling system of all time at 154 million units sold of hardware. So they sold 154 million DSs. And then their follow-up system was half that at 75.9. And the reason for this is, straight up, is the novelty is gone. The novelty of the DS was expanded upon in the 3DS, but the novelty was roughly the same. Now, if you direct your attention a little more to the right, you'll see the NES came out 61.9 million, and then Super NES, and then N64. And every system after the NES hard console system sold less than the previous ones. Started at 61.9, then 49, 32.9, then 21.74. The novelty wore off, because at the end of the day, the SNES, the N64, the GameCube, they were just more powerful versions of the ones that came forward. You could argue the N64, there was a big novelty, and that was 3D gaming, which is true, but that is a graphical novelty. The Analog Stick's also a big novelty. It was a game changer for sure. But it still couldn't beat the SNES numbers. It couldn't beat the NES numbers. And then there was their second most popular system, the Wii, 101 million, and then the Wii U 13. Now, there is a very large amount of reasons why the Wii U was as catastrophically, bad compared to the Wii. It has a lot to do with a lot of different things, the name, the timing, the this, the that, the price, everything. So now it still sold less, but yes, it sold catastrophically less. It sold almost a tenth less than the Wii, or a tenth of the Wii. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the big reasons, the common thread, is that the novelty wore off. The casual motion controlled you know, get up, stand up, you know, play on your feet. The novelty wore off. And it wore off hard on the Wii U, amongst many other reasons. Novelty wore thin. Novelty wore thin on the 3DS compared to the DS. Novelty wore thin on the Wii U compared to the Wii. The novelty wore thin on the SNES compared to the NES. The novelty on the GameCube wore thinner than the novelty of the N64. And then there's one last one, which is their they're truly their second place, which is the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, which they're being a little sneaky by combining the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, I feel, into one SKU. That's not really true. But regardless, Game Boy, 118 million. Game Boy Advance, 81 million. And here's the thing. This has nothing to do with the quality of the games whatsoever. The Wii U has some of the best games ever made. You know, it has Bayonetta 2. It has Tropical Freeze. It has Breath of the Wild. It has Xenoblade X. It's the only thing that has Xenoblade X. But again, wasn't enough to save the system. Sometimes having great software isn't enough. Just sadly is the case sometimes. But anyways, Game Boy Advance, great piece of hardware, but it sold less overall than the Game Boy. Now, it was out a lot less amount of time. Like, Game Boy Advance lasted for 5 years, maybe. The Game Boy lasted for like 11. So it's a bit of a skewed thing. But again, the novelty wore off. You know, not as many people eventually went and bought a Game Boy or a Game Boy Advance or a Game Boy Advance SP or a Game Boy Micro, whatever. And that leaves us with our current reigning champion here today, and that is the Nintendo Switch at 141.32 million. It's coming for that Nintendo DS lifetime sales, and it's going to get there. It's going to get there. It's going to get there, and it's going to beat it. The Switch is going to, at the end of the day, the Switch will sell more than the Nintendo DS. But their successor, as we already know, it's using a NVIDIA mobile chip as its base design again. We know it's going to be a hybrid console again. Nintendo has not outright confirmed this, but like, doesn't take a genius, let alone all the other sleuthing that's gone on here. Yes, the new system will be a hybrid console design again. They are working with the same partners, working off the same things. It's the Nintendo Switch successor will absolutely be a hybrid console. But that novelty is no longer in effect. And that's going to lead to a loss of some sort. It could be a lot softer, as you see from Game Boy to Game Boy Advance, or even NES to SNES. I doubt very much that it's going to be as harsh as Wii to Wii U. I don't think you're going to get as catastrophic a drop from system to system ever again as the Wii to the Wii U. But the novelty is going to be gone. Okay, like the idea that like you have a powerful handheld system that plugs into a dock and plugs into your TV and can do both. That novelty is 7 years old now, and with a successor, it's just expected now. It's not like this crazy new selling point. So novelty's worn off. And to sort of follow up with that, point number 2 is that Nintendo's no longer the only game on the market now. Now, that being said, the competitors in this field are nowhere near the success of the Switch and are never going to be. However, they're not the only kid on the block anymore. They're not the only one offering a powerful, dedicated, handheld gaming experience that can plug into a monitor. Valve's doing it. Arog is doing it. Lenovo's doing it. There will be more. More will come. There will be more upgrades, revisions of the currently existing ones. But Nintendo is no longer the only game in the market. And right now, they're on a technical scale, they're very outclassed by their brothers and sisters, however you want to look at the Steam Deck, the Ally, the Legion. But again, I don't expect these things to outsell the Switch. It's just that it's no longer a blue ocean all to Nintendo's self. There are competitors now. It is a competitive field, and that will chip away at the overall user base of the Nintendo Switch, and especially the Nintendo Switch successor, because there's going to be plenty of people out there who have a Steam Deck OLED, a ROG Ally X, a Legion Go. I don't know how many. I have no idea how many versions of the Legion there are out there, but the Legion does, and the Legion even has its own little unique doodad. I don't know if you guys knew this. It has this crazy mouse thing where you stand the one of the, I think, the left Joy-Con of it upright, and it has like a mouse, like a laser mouse on the bottom, so it can emulate a mouse from a Joy-Con. So that even has its own little like exclusive doohickey. But yeah, like they're not the only game in town anymore. Now, again, I'm not sitting here saying like they're going to overtake them. These are equivalent to the Game Gear, the Neo Geo Pocket, and maybe the PS Vita or the PSP. PSP took a pretty big chunk of the pie when it came out, but they're not the only game in town. They're not the only ones doing hybrid, powerful handheld gamings. And the thing is that a Steam Deck and ROG Ally and I'm assuming the Legion, what's up, Boba Creek, is that these all have access to your Steam library, which means they come with access to an insane amount of games and big games, AAA games, and they can run them. So Nintendo's not just the only game in town, but like they are also going to compete with the entirety of the Steam library. But at the end of the day, this is going to be something that ships with them. They're not the only kid in town, and their novelty is on the better half of a creeping towards a decade old now as well. So point number 2, they're not the only kid in town, and there's already powerful competitors out there with access to an enormous amount of library of games. And then the third point, the Utes. The Utes of today are a very different breed of customer than they even were 7 years ago, let alone 10. And what I'm basically getting at here today is kids don't really give two shits about what your handheld device is capable of, because the thing is, they're playing on a portable device. They're playing video games on a portable device every single day, and that portable device also happens to be their phone. So getting a kid to either save up or bug their parent for a potentially $400 successor when they already have a phone that plays everything they already play and enjoy. It's more to the point about the Utes here is that the majority, like 80% of the games played online, at least on the online side of things, played online right now are 6 years old or older. You're talking Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, GTA 5, Call of Duty, Warzone. Although Warzone actually isn't 6 years old, I don't think yet. But no, like the majority of those games, like the ones I listed, Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, they're 6 years old or older. And they play just fine on their phones. And if one of these kids happens to have a Switch already, they have access to Minecraft, they have access to Fortnite. And again, if they have a Steam Deck, if God forbid any one of these Utes somehow gets, which I don't think they would, but if they did, they could play Genshin Impact, they could play Call of Duty on that. They could play Call of Duty mobile on their phones right now. What we're looking at here is, and then in other parts of the world, you have things like Apex and Overwatch and whatever. I don't know if Overwatch plays on phones, but I think Apex probably does, but I know PUBG sure does. So the point is that the Utes of today, they like Mario. They really do. And they like Pokemon, sure. But the market's really shifted away. And the thing is they're kind of secured into their ecosystems there. It's not so easy to just sit there and say, like, all right, make a new account on a new device and spend a new $400, yada, yada, yada. Even with these games being free to play, where the kids probably are like, I have what I need. And kids love their phones. Kids kids even are now saying today that they're addicted to their phones, that they're too addicted to their phones. So the youths of today are not the youths of 7 years ago, let alone 10, 12, 15. That doesn't mean the Switch successor won't be a great Christmas present or a great something that gets bought for them or whatever. But my point here is that the demand from the youths is not going to be as great. It's going to be diminished greatly from what it already was before, because they have phones. A 2-year-old can operate a phone now, let alone 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-olds. And then the almighty teenagers, that whole market, they're not interested in what's up, Chef Gearhead? They're just not going to be that interested because they've already invested hundreds, if not thousands of hours and money into their Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite accounts that they use every single day on their phone. Every single day. And the phones are just getting better because, a lot of people just roll over their phone every year. And those brand new iPhones, good Lord, they can run RE4 remake and stuff like that. So, the point I'm getting at here is that, like, one of the staples of Nintendo's markets has always been the youths. You know it, I know it. The youths of today are going to be harder to convince to leave their free-to-play, time-invested gardens already on their phones. Now, allegedly, I say this point is a little less strong than the first two. The first 2 points, I think, are the greater points altogether, which is the hardware sales naturally decline after a huge success, and that, Nintendo is no longer the only kid on the block. They have a lot of competitors in the exact same field of the Switch. So yeah, I don't think they have as much of a lock on the market with the youths. Thank you, KY. As there was before. There is one last point. It's a smaller point, and it's more of a question than a point. The one last point on that is I call the Smash Kart conundrum. What on God's green earth is Nintendo going to do to one-up the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Smash Bros. Ultimate? Especially when you take into both their DLCs into account. Now, there are still courses and some characters missing from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that were in an older Mario Kart. There is costuming. They could go the whole Smash Brothers route with Mario Kart. Those are all ideas. But it's going to be hard to convince the near 60 million people alone that have bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and start over from the ground up with a brand new Mario Kart that will 100% have less courses, less characters. That is the ultimate, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you know you have to offer an inferior product? Because, like, how much better does a Mario Kart specifically need to look? And how much better does the vast majority of those 60 million players, how many of those 60 million players who play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe go, man, I like this game, but gosh, it's so hard to look at. I wish it looked so much better. I wish it ran so much better. Probably not a lot. Let's be honest here. And then worse, honestly, is Smash Bros. Ultimate. There's no reality out there where you can look at Smash Ultimate and say, like, okay, let's give you a new game. It'll have less characters. It'll have less stages. It'll have less music. I'm going to sell you a product with less stuff in it, and I'm going to charge more than I charge for Smash Ultimate out the gate. Please buy it. I mean, you could sit there and argue, oh, well, they could use a big fat single player mode. Does Mario Kart or Smash Bros? I mean, I would like to see a nice big single player mode. A big single player mode for Smash Ultimate is not going to sell, or a Smash Ultimate sequel is not going to sell more than Smash Ultimate. Smash Ultimate is the best-selling fighting game of all time, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is probably the best-selling racing game of all time at this point. Like, adding a single player mode on the best selling games of all time, but taking away the overall number of courses and characters, I don't think that does not equate. That does not add up. So this is like a smaller problem, and it goes into a little bit of a bigger thing, and that is, what does a Switch successor do? Because I believe 100% this Switch successor will be backwards compatible. I think it would actually sell worse if it wasn't. But I believe 100% it'll be backwards compatible, meaning these games will play on the Switch successor. And the other thing is that you have things like Nintendo Switch Online, which is old games, you know, everywhere from NES up to N64. And adding to those, people can just keep their Switches. That's the other problem here, too. And that they're going to keep making games for the Switch. You know, it's going to take, you know, something big on the scale of a Breath of the Wild or a new Animal Crossing, you know, to really get people to really want to dive in to a brand new system successor. But, like, you have Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild already on the Switch. You have Mario Kart 8, best-selling game on the system. You have your hundreds and hundreds of hours invested already into your Animal Crossing island and whatnot. So you're just kind of looking at a general thing where it's just like, even like an upgrade, a sequel, a new fresh coat of paint version, it's going to be hard to sell to. It's going to be hard to overcome the sales of the previous one, because again, Ultimate is the series best. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the series best. Animal Crossing is the series best. Zelda Breath of the Wild is the series best. Like, it is going to be hard to get more sales out of that, and I don't even think it's really honestly I don't even think it's that possible. We've already kind of seen that with Tears of the Kingdom. It's plateaued pretty hard on sales. Like, it came out right out the gate, sold like 20 million in a couple months, and then didn't really sell much after that. So, you know, you can add new consoles to the NSO that are only compatible on the new system. It's something, and I imagine it probably will be part of the plan or strategy there. But I think there's just going to be a lot of people who are probably just going to be fine with their Switch for the foreseeable future, because they may not game that much. They may just be a very casual gamer, and they have their phone, and when they have friends come over, they can just boot up Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, boot up Smash Brothers, just play that as is anytime, and it's totally fine for what they need. So, but yeah, all these in a nutshell, or all these combined, these are all reasons I'm pretty sure the Switch successor will not be as successful as the original Switch. Now, to go back to the whole numbers game here, how much do I think the Switch successor will sell? I think it'll sell 100 to 120 million. I think when all is said and done, like 8 years later from the successor coming out, I think the Nintendo Switch successor will cap out at around 100 to 120 million lifetime hardware sales. I think the Switch is going to cap out at around 155 to 160. I think Nintendo will do everything they can to push that just over the edge, just so they can smear some mud on Jim Ryan's ugly face one last time, you know, because, you know, before he just comes out of retirement and declares that the PS2 magically sold 10 million more copies in the years since. But either way, I think the Switch caps out at around 155 to 160, maybe 165, maybe. And then I think their successor goes 100, 120. And it's not just Nintendo systems, by the way, that do this. Sony's about the only system where they've ever actually sold more on the immediate successor. But again, there was a novelty there. PS1 was just a damn good video game system. PS2 was a DVD player. It was a DVD player and video game system and a backwards compatible system. And for at least the first couple of years, it was most people's go-to DVD player. The novelty wore off because the PS3 sold way less than the PS2. They bounced back with the PS4, you know, and they're selling just fine on PS5 right now, as far as we know. But like, yeah, like it's hard to say if the PS5 is going to somehow magically outsell the PS4. I have serious doubts about that. But the PS4 was definitely a bounce back from the PS3, because again, the PS3 was, well, it's a Blu-ray, that's novel. Blu-ray didn't last that long. So again, like, Vita sold a lot less than the PSP. It's just sort of the nature of the industry. You know, every 10 to 20 years you come along, you sort of come up with some brand new novelty that really strikes a chord with people. You know, whether it's the D-pad, literally we didn't have D-pads till the NES, whether it's legitimate portable gaming with the Game Boy, technically the Lynx came out right before it, but you know, whether it's dual screen touchscreen with the DS, whether it's motion controls with the Wii, whether it's the hybrid console approach with the Switch, their follow-ups, even if they're, you know, we added 3D to it, we added shoulder buttons to it, we added, you know, extra face buttons to it, you know, we added a second analog. They're all just iterative add-ons, and it's not enough to drive the point home where your novelty is somehow going to outsell its original. So, in short, Nintendo Switch successor I expect to be a success. I expect it to be a success on the level of the Nintendo Wii when all is said and done. Somewhere between the Wii and the Game Boy's original hardware numbers there. But I don't think it's going to sell more, and I think I've laid out some pretty good reasons why that is. That being said, I think with the backwards compatibility and with the much needed boost in hardware proficiency, I do think the Nintendo Switch successor will be an overall significantly better system than the Nintendo Switch. I think it will be a much better system overall, and that's exciting. We're going to see some real true gems on this system successor, and they're gonna look really good too. So, you know, I don't. There's not a reason to not be excited, but I think just sort of like let's bring a little reality here to the situation, which is successor will be exciting. It'll be great. It'll have a great hardware library. Not going to be as successful as the Switch. And you know something? That's okay. Let me know what you guys think.